would have happened is that the prayer of Hannah to God would have been for her to be blessed with children. And it says here that it was a time that the word of the Lord, and this is in 1 Samuel 3:1, it starts off by saying this: "And the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli, and the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision." So before Samuel was born, we know that his mother would have prayed a prayer, and Eli would have been observing her, seeing her mouth moving, not hearing any song. In other words, her prayer would have been a silent prayer. And in Eli's mind, he would have told her why it is she would have partake of this amount of wine, or of so much wine, and coming drunk before the Lord in the house of the Lord. And her reply is that she didn't partake of any alcohol, neither was she drunk, but her heart is grieving because of her situation. And then Eli would have pronounced a blessing upon her. And the Bible tells us that the husband of Hannah, or Elkanah, would have knew his wife, and Samuel would have been conceived into his mother's womb. And Samuel is now born, and he is now weaned from suckling or lactating. And she brings him with her husband. She moves with her husband and brings him to the temple of God to dedicate him to the Lord. And in so doing, he was left there to be of service to God. And as I would have read chapter 1, 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1, it says that the word of the Lord was rare and there was no open vision. And verse 2 continues to say, "And it came to pass at that time when Eli lay down in his place, and his eyes began to wax dim, that he could not see. And the lamp of God went out in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was, and Samuel was laid down to sleep." The chapter goes on further to say that Samuel heard a call, and in hearing the call, he did answer and said, "Here am I." And he came to Eli. And Eli sent him back and said, "I didn't call you, Samuel. Go back and sleep." And this call happened 3 times. And on the 3rd time, Eli would have realized what was happening and told Samuel, according to 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 9, which says, "Therefore Eli said unto Samuel, Go lie down, and it shall be, if he call thee, that thou shalt say, Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth." So Samuel obeyed and went back and lay down in his place. And the call to Samuel came to him again. And verse 10 says, "Speak, for thy servant heareth." In other words, Samuel took the advice of Eli. And when God called him the 4th time, and this is just according to scripture, when God called on him the 4th time, he said, "Speak, for thy servant heareth." In other words, he recognized that this is the voice of God. So we see here, by the guidance of the high priest Eli, the Bible also said that Samuel was not familiar with the word of the Lord, even though he was of service to God